swag, ideas to flow. Steph and Joe are on the go, go. Sharing what we know from the classroom to the show. It's Steph and Joe on the go. Innovation, education, moving fast with dedication. Come along, let's start the flow. It's Steph and Joe on the go.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everybody. Oh, we're so excited to be here with you again as we are on the go getting ready for our day. Steph, how you doing?
I am doing good. I am excited for today's conversation.
No, it's going to be fantastic. We're going to take everybody, back to the past or back to the future. No, back to the past, I think. And talk about how do we move forward with technology and tools and things like that. So it's going to be a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I agree, because sometimes I know my first few years of teaching, I was so obsessed with the tools and what the tools could do and that flashiness of it. But as I got more into teaching, I was like, actually the pedagogy, actually the instructional strategies matter a lot more.
Yeah, because here I want everybody to kind of take a breath and take a pause. And I want you to think about 10, 11 years ago. Okay, so 2014, 2015. During this time, two products came out that really kind of revolutionized what it meant to present to your students. Steph, do you know what these two products were that came out around 2014, 2015?
Google Classroom?
Oh, well, close. That did come out then. And then the battle of the LMSs are still raging on. But around this time, 2014, 2015, you had a product called Nearpod hit the market.
Oh, that was
and
dang.
Yeah, I know. And there was another product that came out that was very similar called Pear Deck. Okay. And oh my goodness, you would have thought teachers were about to go to war, right? You either had to be team Nearpod, or you had to be on team Pear Deck. You couldn't like both. And people would go to war. They would go to battle to defend the platform that they loved the best. Were you ever a part of the war of Nearpod and Pear Deck during this time?
Yeah, I mean, we started off as a district having Nearpod, and then we
Yep.
moved to Pear Deck, and I was pretty upset with that move. Like, I remember being like, why are we moving? And I think it had to do with budget issues and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember with Nearpod, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, being able to control student slides and having them on the same page, because I would be like, go to page 6, and half your class gets there, the other class is like, what did she say? I love the control. I love that I could see my students work live. But yeah, I started off as a Nearpod, would probably be my team.
Yeah, I was the same way. I was part of the very first Nearpod Pioneer cohort. I think that started back in 2016. And I had a whole group of edtech-toses in my area that loved Pear Deck. And we were battling it out on which platform could we convince the district to purchase, right? And I was like, oh, no, Nearpod all the way, because Nearpod connects to Google, Nearpod connects to Microsoft. You can make within Nearpod, or you can upload to Nearpod. They have a library. We can have a district library. And then Pear Deck's like, but Pear Deck's so fun. The littles love it. You can still upload your Google stuff. It doesn't have a library yet, but you can share your slide decks. Like, it was a battle. And the same thing happened a year or so later with these two tools. And that would be Quizzes and Kahoot. Do you remember that battle? Quizzes versus Kahoot. Which one's better?
Yeah,
right?
I do.
And the same thing. You were either all in with Kahoot and dissed Quizzes, or you were all in with Quizzes and you dissed Kahoot. You were one or the other. And yesterday we were in a tech coach meeting and we were visited by Renaissance, who owns Nearpod now. And then we were visited by Paracess, which is the company now that under it houses Go Guardian and Pear Deck. And I kind of whispered over to one of my friends who was around during the 2014, 2015, Nearpod Pear Deck time. And I'm like, are we about to battle? Like, is Renaissance and Pear Deck going to cross paths and then like give each other the stare down? And it never happened. And I was like, are we over this? And then I realized, yes, we have to be over it because, as we get older and we get more understanding of what these tools are, we found out a very, very important aspect of technology. It's not about the tech. It's about the technique, right? It's not about the tech tool you've chosen to use. It's how the educator chooses to use it. And if you're an innovative educator, it doesn't matter if you had Pear Deck or Nearpod. You're going to make the platform work because you're amazing, because you know the technique to get kids to understand the material, and you know the questions and activities that are going to get them to understand that material. So it didn't matter whether you used Nearpod or Pear Deck. It mattered that you, the teacher, had the technique and skills needed to be relevant to your kids. And so I think we have to be reminded of that today, because it's not, we can't choose a single tool and plant the flag in it. I'm seeing it happen all over with AI tools. Like, oh, I'm team school AI. No, I'm team Magic School. Like, no, I'm team Brisk. No, I'm team Diffit. It's like, can't we all just get along? Like, it's not about which tool is the best. It's about, have we trained our teachers the best way to use AI? And then it doesn't matter what tool they use because they have the background understanding of the techniques needed to truly harness the power of AI. So it's not Magic School that's going to do the magic. It's the teacher. And so we really have to support each other instead of supporting a one particular tool, because I don't want to go back to the times of ed tech wars. I don't want to go back to those times of you have to plant your flag in one product and you have to defend it with your life. Because I'm seeing that with some of these tools, and it's like, no, that's not going to work. It didn't work back then. It's not going to work right now. Let's support our teachers with pedagogical skills needed to successfully use any tool, and then support them in their use of the tool that they've selected, instead of finding the tool first before training on the technique. What are your thoughts about that long-winded answer that I gave you?
Yeah, it's definitely about the technique, but I do think technology can bring a lot of benefits to teaching. For example, like the speed, right? Like we're able to get students to learn using multiple different ways. They have video, they have audio clips, they can hands-on do it. And just again, it sometimes will speed up the teacher's workflow to help them kind of maybe easier to grade or faster to grade if you use that immediate feedback for formative assessments. Where I remember my first few years of teaching, I was going through papers and like hand grading things that a computer easily could have done. Another thing that I really like is accessibility, right? Technology allows students to be advocates of their own learning. Before technology, I had to read aloud different passages, different directions to my students. Now my students can click words and it will actually be read to them if they have it on their computer, which to me is just crazy how students have accessibility right at their fingertips to really support their own learning. I've also noticed that technology allows more creation. Students can create a poster on paper, but they can also create a digital poster online. And so I think, again, we talked about a lot of choices versus little choices in another podcast episode, but that's a simple way that you could create a choice. Do you want to create this poster on paper, or do you want to create it using a technology tool that is more digital? And again, it allows those students to really practice learning. But I think, again, it has to be done right. The teacher has to have background knowledge on really good pedagogy and techniques to make those kind of factors really play a role to support and enhance student engagement and learning.
No, I love that you are drilling down to the student experience, because that is truly where the power in tech lies, right? It's not the features in Nearpod that you're selecting; it's the accessibility and experience that the kids are going to have, right? But if like we saw throughout our careers, schools purchasing one platform, and then maybe because of budgets or price increases, they had to switch over to another one. And you would have thought they're taking away food and water to some teachers. Um, but that's when you dig in and go, okay, well, I was able to create this experience for my kids and they enjoyed it. Can I still create that experience in this new platform? And while it's going to be a slightly different, both platforms are good, right? Like, it's not like one platform is far and above better than the other. They're both good. You just have to figure out how to make them kind of do your bidding so that your kids can have a great experience. And I think that's the key concept is, what is the experience you want your kids to have? And then select some of the features of a tool that'll make that happen, rather than, well, here's the Nearpod, I can only use these things to make the experience for my kids. No, let's talk about the experience first, and then choose a tool or features that'll help make that experience happen. Because I think too many times we plant our flag in a tool, and we instantly become constrained to only what that one tool can accomplish, rather than putting out a list of wants that we want our kids to do, and then looking at our toolbox and go, okay, what is the best tool that's going to meet these needs, right? So again, it's about the features, not about the brand, I guess you would say. But then, of course, there are some tools that are unmatched, that doesn't have a competitor. Like I mean, I know you might be a little bit biased, but I don't know of any other tool that does the things that Cami can do, right? With the depth and breadth of the different modalities that students can respond and highlight on text. Like, I haven't seen anything that can do that. So like, if I have to find a tool that's going to help my students understand text, Cami might be the one that I choose, because it doesn't have any kind of similar competitor, but it meets the needs of my kids. But that's the first thing I look for, is, will it meet the needs of my kids? Not, how can I use this tool to meet the needs of my kids? You know what I'm saying, Steph?
Yeah, I definitely think it's really important to start with that focus on what do my students need, right? If they're struggling with read aloud, is there a tool out there that can support them? So I think, again, technique really matters, and it helps because we want to make sure that we're building the foundation for innovation, right? We want to make sure that we are having that foundation where we're able to know, okay, these are some research-based strategies. Like, for example, think pair share is a really great research strategy. When you add technology to that, you are just like amplifying that strategy. That strategy has been created before technology, and using even jigsaw groups and having students research. There's a lot of different pedagogy resources type strategies, and one of my favorites to kind of look over is either using like Bloom's taxonomy, kind of that focus, or even using Marzano. So Marzano has 9 different kind of instructional ideas to really support student learning. And so if you have that where the techniques and thinking about comparing and contrasting, maybe that's a strategy, because again, that's part of Marzano's ideas and thoughts. How can I use technology to enhance it? So again, having that foundation is crucial, and then thinking what technology is going to support it best, because there can be some pitfalls that might happen if you don't pick the right technique, right? If you don't have that technique foundation first and you're just like, oh, this looks cool, let's just try it. There's a lot of things that aren't in place with that background.
No,
Also,
I mean, that's you're absolutely correct. Go ahead.
also, I think consistency matters, right? Sometimes I've seen teachers do some type of idea. I'm going to go with group work because usually it's group work. Group work, again, is a high impact strategy based on Hattie's work. They'll want to do group work, and even if it's not on the computer, even if it's on paper, it goes usually terribly wrong because we're not consistent. We don't explain the expectations to students. And so, even though you have some of these high impact strategies, you have to be consistent. You have to go over your expectations. And a lot of these strategies can be rinse and repeat. Where I know my first few years of teaching, I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And I was like afraid to rinse and repeat something. However, when you rinse and repeat a strategy that is really impactful in your classroom, your students are going to get quicker at the technology. They're going to be able to kind of predict, and their results will get better. And I love to do this during my CAMI trainings because at the start, I'll have them kind of demonstrate their knowledge. And it usually takes folks that have never been in CAMI about, a minute or two to find the tools on the left-hand sidebar. By the end of the training, they're finding it within like less than 30 seconds. And I love to point that out to them. Like, hey, the first like few moments that we did this activity, it took you a while to get there. But look at how much faster you are now at the end. And so I think that is something else that's really, really important to really kind of focus on is that consistency, rinse and repeat strategies, and going over those expectations.
Oh, I love it. And I love the fact that you're talking about, tried and true strategies that have worked for a long time, right? You're talking about Marzano strategies, Madeline Hunter strategies, like these things that have been around for decades can easily be ported over into technology, right? You're taking your skills and the techniques that you've always used, you're just putting them in a new medium so that students have better accessibility, so students have a better experience, so teacher has better insights, right? It's the technique, it's the strategy that you've chosen first, and then find the tool that best meets your needs to create that experience for the kids, right? I think that's very, very important. A lot of people have used this analogy, but I use it forever. And that's, you don't go to like Lowe's or Home Depot, find a tool and say, what can I do with this? You usually go into Lowe's and Home Depot with a plan of something you want to get done around your house, something you want to build, something you want to fix. And then you look for the tool that's going to help you make that fix or that build a reality, right? So you have your strategy down first, you have your techniques down first, and then you pick the tool that'll help you accomplish those things. You don't pick the tool first. And I think too many times we plant our flag in a tool because we get caught up in the hype of a community. And when you get caught up in the hype of a tool or the hype of a community of a tool, sometimes you lose the vision of the reason you've chosen that tool. And I think we have to put down technique first, strategy first, and student needs first before we put a tool ahead of all of those things. I think that can be very detrimental, not only to education, but also to teamwork. When two opposing members on the team have planted their flag in a singular tool and are fighting to get that one accepted by the district, or maybe, you really love a tool, but you're like, I really wish it had these accessibility features that this other tool has, but I'm not a member of that community of that other tool, so I don't want to use it. Like we can't rest on hype, on a community. We have to rest on our experiences as an educator, the techniques we know will work, and then find the tool that best meets those needs. Those are the only things that we need to look at. And it took me a very long time to realize that. It took me a long time that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, because soon that basket will be bought up by a bigger basket company, and it's gonna change, or the basket's gonna go out of business, and now you're left with nothing. So we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. We want to make sure that we're using technique first, strategy first before we select our tools.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, how do we give some tips for finding the balance between integrating tech and that technique? Like, what tips do you have for listeners, or when you're working with teachers as a coach, how do you help them find that balance?
So what number one, I go in and and this was a very interesting interview question that I had received when, coming back to my district and wanting to take this new position. And it was, what's your favorite tool that you love to share with educators? And I sat there and I said, is that a trick question? And they look at me like, no, we just want to know your favorite tool. And which I go, well, I said, it has to be a trick question because you never lead with the tool. I go, I don't know the teacher's style. I don't know the teacher. I don't know how the teacher teaches. I said, I have to go in and have at least a consultation with the teacher of their vision, of their style, of their dreams, if anything was possible. And then I can come up with some suggestions of things they can do, but I never lead with a tool. And they were like, oh, that's actually a very interesting insight. I'm like, interesting. That's the way we should be doing it, right? Lead with the person, not lead with the tool. So that's what I would say. If you're a tech coach out there, don't go in and say, let me show you my 5 favorite tools, right? Say, tell me the experiences you've had with your kids that were successful. Tell me some of the roadblocks that you experienced throughout the year that, really frustrates you as a teacher. Having these questions can help you kind of envision a tool or a strategy or a routine that could best fit that teacher, and it could be as simple as selecting like an edge of protocol that has worked in a similar situation and say, well, you know what, let's just use a Google slide with this cyber sandwich. Let's see how this works for you. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily about, well, you know what? I always use Nearpod. I'm a Nearpod trainer. I'm a Nearpod pioneer. Let's see how Nearpod can transform your room. I don't think that works, right? So it's always get to know your teachers, get to know your staff, get to know, their ticks and their talks before you start suggesting a tool to use. But again, when people plant their flag, when they join a community that they feel very passionate about, sometimes we lead with the tool and not lead with, teamwork, I guess you would say. It's that would be my strategy first, right? And then go down the rabbit hole of every tool that's similar and get to know all of them because they all have their quirks. They all have maybe a feature the other one doesn't, or they all have a feature that's lacking that you wish it had. Like, know the tools inside and out, but don't have a favorite of them, right? The favorite needs to be the teacher. The favorite needs to be the students. The favorite doesn't need to be the tool.
Yeah, and I think if you're a teacher listening, maybe reach out to an instructional coach, or if you're a principal, right? Your instructional coaches have a lot of backgrounds on the tools and strategies because that's their job, is to research, right, Joe? Like, I know you do a lot of research, and you have told me in Marco Polo's that you like to take that load off of the teacher, right? You love to take that load off from a teacher from researching. So another practical step that you could take is seeking that feedback from an instructional coach. If you don't have an instructional coach, maybe there's a leader, but those are the folks that should be doing the research to make sure that you're using the best practices.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that's one thing that creates this daunting aspect is that, well, I went to a presentation on this tool. I like its features, so I'm just going to use this one. There's no more reason for me to go out and look for similar tools. I get that. But you're right. That's where the ed tech coach needs to come in because you're supposed to know all the tools so that you can be the best coach you can for every teacher. And I tell my teachers all the time, I wade through the crap in order to bring you the gems. Like I might have gone through 100 ed tech tools and I'm only going to be sharing 10 with you as options because the rest I don't think are going to meet your needs. Right. But a teacher doesn't have that time to do the research, to do the trials, to get familiar with the tools like your coaches have. And so if you are a teacher who has gone to a conference and planted your flag in a tool, invite your coach in, invite your TOSA in, and have a conversation with them, because they might have a few gems for you you never knew existed. And that creates trust and credibility for you to return to that classroom and do more work with that teacher. But I think that's an incredible thing that districts can do with their coaches, is to have them be like that first step in research so they can provide the best recommendations to their staff.
Yeah, and I think being patient and persistent is another thing, right? Again, sometimes technology, the first time you try it, doesn't go well. And one of my favorite ISTE standards for teachers is to try strategies that, or try technology that you have not really learned with your students. So having them and kind of, again, clicking through. And I love to do this as a tech coach, because there were sometimes teachers would bring a tool to me and I'm like, I don't know what that is, right? Like there's so many things out there. And so what I would do is I would have the teacher sit down with me and we would kind of click through that technology tool and talk and brainstorm together. And so don't be afraid to not know how to use something, I think, as well, like having that open conversation. And sometimes when I was speaking out loud my thoughts, that teacher picked up on things that we might not have, like, oh, if I click here, what does that do? Right? Like talking like that can really be helpful for some teachers. So kind of, again, be very patient, persistent, and then always being willing to learn. Listen to podcasts, listen to books. Is there anything that you learn consistently from, Joe? Like, is there a way that you prefer to learn over another?
Yeah, so I actually have Google alerts on various key terms for ed tech that I get into my mailbox every morning, and then there's quite a few newsletters that I follow from people that I respect. Right, like Eric Kurtz, right? He's a friend of both of ours. I think he has great ideas, and he's not really telling you what to do, but he's giving you insightful information that you can then use from your experience as an educator, and then go off and be successful. So I love those strategies that Eric puts out there. Right, he's not rah-rahing a singular tool. He's rah-rahing the opportunity to learn about a new tool. There's a big difference there. So I love that with educators that I can follow like that. And then of course there's a lot of newsletters you can put out. There's a couple AI newsletters that I'm on, and they have really great articles that are linked to it. And I learned that way. And of course the Google group you created with so many amazing educators asking questions and sharing ideas. I said it last time we were on the podcast, but I'm going to say it again. It has the same feel that Twitter used to have. And I appreciate that. So that to me is the most important way that I learn about new things is people, is through connections. And then having the time and the breadth to be able to investigate to see if that tool is worth sharing with my staff.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And so, Joe, do you have an example of when a teacher has maybe said how you've done technique over tech in your coaching cycle? Is there an example that you have off the top of your head of when this has happened in your real life?
Well, yeah, I mean, so like in our district, we have 5 different areas, and each area basically gets to choose the tech that they want. I mean, there are some overarching techs that the entire district uses, but for the most part, each area gets to select, various tools. And so one area was using Nearpod. And the prices just went up, and so they couldn't afford it anymore. And because we were already using GoGuardian at the district level, we were able to get, Pear Deck at a very reasonable cost. And the teachers are like, I don't know how to use this tool. I don't know where the buttons are. I go, listen, we created all of your Nearpods in Google Slides, right? They go, yeah. I go, it's the same thing. Remember the techniques we learned about Nearpod, and just transfer those techniques to Pear Deck. It might be a little bit different, but it's still going to be kind of the same pedagogical approach. And it calmed them down, right? We humans are creatures of habit. We like to park in the same spot every day, and we get upset when somebody takes our parking spot, even though it's not labeled as your parking spot, right? We love to sit in the same chair. We love to order the same thing off the menu because we know we're comfortable with it. And so when we see a tool that has buttons in different places and different activities or different names, we get frustrated and overwhelmed. But if we go back to our pedagogical approaches, we go back to the techniques we were trying to provide our students, it kind of washes the fears away when you do it that way. And the school was successful. The school was successful, and now they use Pear Deck pretty easily. But I'll tell you, when they took away Nearpod, it was like they were taking away what it meant to be a teacher to them at that point. And it's like, no. You're the reason this tool worked, not the tool. You're the reason this tool worked. And any tool will work because you're the reason. That was one of the most impactful things that I saw. And that really is one of the things that kind of trained me on, you can't rest all of your laurels on a single tool. You have to know all of them because you never know the situation you're going to walk into.
Yeah, no, that's a great example, right? Of having teachers transfer skills. I know for me, a lot of times, I see teachers struggling with giving feedback. And so what I would suggest to them is, okay, since that's our struggle, right? And teacher time is really, really a struggle for a lot of teachers. What if they started to create CAMI assignments in that learning management system? Teachers have class view where they can see every single student's screen at the same time and quickly provide feedback if they set up their annotation bank, and drag and drop that feedback, customize it, support students with audio, video. You're not telling the students the answer, but you're guiding them to that correct answer with your feedback. So that's one example that I've seen. Again, starting off with what is the problem?
100%.
Right?
There's another situation. Oh, well, I'm sorry. We're breaking up. Go ahead, Steph.
Just like, what is the problem, right? That's the focus, is starting off with, okay, is it feedback that's taking up a lot of our time? Is it teachers struggling with having group work? What is the problem? And from there, deciding what technology will best support that problem.
Yes. Oh, can you say that again, Steph? I think that's like the quote of the day. Say that one more time.
So again, focus on that problem, right? We want to know, what is that problem that the teacher has? And sometimes it's asking them, sometimes it's seeing them through their frustrations or their complaints. Once you see that problem, that's going to be what you focus your technology on, right? So again, if it's feedback or if it's group work, what tools will best support it? What tools will take away that stress, that gripe from that teacher to make it even more impactful for their classroom? And they're going to, again, need that consistency. They might need a coaching cycle to support it, but that's where you come into play as an instructional coach or an instructional leader.
And I love it. And when a teacher has a problem and they think they've solved it, and then that tool goes away, it seems like the problem is amplified, right? And you are the coach that needs to go in and be like, wait, you solved the problem. Let's find another tool that meets your needs. For example, this just recently happened. A lot of teachers love DraftBack, right? And have you ever used the extension DraftBack in Google Slides, Steph?
Yeah,
Google Docs?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I used to use it all of the time.
All the time. And in the age of AI, so many teachers were using DraftBack to see how many times a student was copying and pasting and those kinds of things. And it makes sense. I even would show it. Like, here's a great strategy if a kid says they never used AI. Here's a great way to kind of look into their paper. Well, DraftBack realized, wait a minute, we have a huge uptick in usage because of AI. So let's get away from a free model and start charging people. Well, it's fine. They're a company. They're allowed to do that. But a lot of teachers don't want to pay for it. And a lot of districts are like, we're not paying for this. So what is a teacher to do? Well, as an ed tech coach, you need to always have a couple of different cards in your pocket, right? And so I was like, I was easily able to say, well, you can always use originality.ai. It has a similar feature to DraftBack, and that's still free. I said, or you can utilize Brisk. It's a new tool, and part of their free features is the inspect writing option, which does the same thing as DraftBack. So by knowing those other two tools, I was instantly able to give them choice to keep their approach the same, but easily transition over to a new tool because it's not about the tool, it's about the technique. And they were able to still transfer their technique to a different tool. And we have to make sure that any tool we're using requires skill. If all you're doing is using a tool where you push buttons, you never create, you never critically think to bring in your pedagogical skills you've learned throughout your life, it starts to kind of water down what it means to be an educator. Plus, there's no transferable skills if that tool ever goes away. And so we have to, as ed tech leaders, as coaches, as TOSAs, we have to be the voice of reason when it comes to that and just remind people, hey, it's not about the tool, it's about the technique, it's about you, the educator. And I think sometimes this is a hit or miss joke, but I always tell the teacher, the biggest tool in this classroom is you. And sometimes they get laughs, sometimes it goes right over their heads when I say that, but it's true. No tool could ever replace the teacher, right? Because you are the minds behind the experience. The tool is just a delivery system. That's it. You're the thing that makes it special.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think as well, as you're reflecting on this episode, there was a lot of great tidbits that I learned from Joe. Think about, are you prioritizing technology or are you prioritizing the techniques behind it? So again, just kind of reflect and think about what are your focus? What are you prioritizing? And how are you going to maybe take one of the ideas that we shared, or maybe you have an idea to share to make that a smoother transition from moving from technology to that technique as your focus?
I love it. I couldn't have said it any better. I always get inspired by you, Steph, and I know many are out there that have that same feeling. So I appreciate all of your comments and listeners. We appreciate your support for our podcast while we're on the go. And Steph, we were always wondering about the next episode. I would love to hear from our audience. What do you want to hear us talk about? Because we always want to make sure that we're providing a great listener experience, and we want to make sure we're talking about the things that you want us to talk about. So let us know, and we'll make sure that we add it to Steph and Joe on the go.
I love that. Okay, so let us know next episodes, and again, reflect. Can't wait to talk to you guys next time.
All right, bye, everybody.